Greetings, everybody. Welcome to today's learning community, addressing veteran and military substance use, promoting recovery through collaboration and compassion. Today is session 2 of the series, empowering veteran and military recovery through safe projects, peer and community programs. Next slide, please. So I'm the moderator for today. My name's Chantel Boudreau. I'm a project associate with SAMHSA's SMVF TA Center. Next slide, please. All right, so our disclaimer. The views, opinions, and content expressed in this presentation do not necessarily reflect the views, opinions, or policies of SAMHSA or HHS. And as a SAMHSA-funded entity, the SMVF TA Center complies with current executive orders and aligns with SAMHSA's strategic priorities. So the current priorities do not support harm reduction as outlined in SAMHSA's Dear Colleague letter on harm reduction. So just want to get that disclaimer out there. Next slide, please. All right, so our session agenda. We'll do our welcome, introduction, overview, have our presentation, Q&A, facilitate discussion. Again, another part of the presentation followed by more Q&A, facilitated discussion, and then we will wrap up. Next slide, please. So as always, ensuring a safe and inclusive virtual meeting space. We appreciate if you're able to set your name to what you want us to call you. If you can please disable any AI transcription or recording service and only use Zoom's live transcription setting instead if you want to transcribe the meeting. Obviously, we love it when you turn your video on, especially when we hit the facilitated discussion parts. And again, if you're not speaking, just please be courteous and mute your microphone. And when we do engage, feel free to use the chat function throughout. And also you can raise your hand. We do ask that when you raise your hand that you don't just immediately come off mute and that you wait to be called on. Next slide, please. So our objectives for today are to provide an overview of collaborative models that enhance substance use disorders, recovery outcomes for veterans and military connected individuals, to highlight safe projects, military connected wellness programs, including Journey from Coping to Thriving, and virtual peer support resources. Also to explore how peer recovery specialists and virtual peer support platforms can expand access to treatment and ongoing recovery services for SMVF. Next slide, please. All right. So if anyone knows the drill, we always appreciate if people can take a moment to put in the chat their name, agency, and where they're from. It's always nice to see where the different people are coming from and where the different perspectives are coming from. Next slide, please. So welcome everyone. Hopefully by now everybody has their audio and everything connected. If not, just let us know in the chat and we'll see if we can help you out. Next slide. So our opening poll question, because we're always curious to know, did you attend the March 3rd webinar on addressing veteran substance use, promoting recovery through collaboration and compassion? Yes, no. No, but you watch the recording or you're not really sure. You've done so many events that maybe. I don't know, we'll just give it a moment so that we can kind of get an idea of where we are here. All right, I think we can end the poll. So I would say it's a bit of a mix. So just so you know, Adam, about half of them did, about half of them did not. So just good for us to know as we're kind of sharing the content and the information. All right, next slide, please. All right, and I kind of mentioned a name already, so I just want to introduce our presenter for today, Adam Swift. He is the director of Safe Veterans Safe Project. Adam's he's also a national nonprofit part of a national nonprofit focused on saving lives impacted by substance use and mental health challenges through prevention, education, and recovery programs. That nonprofit being Save Veterans at Save Project. He brings over 26 years of leadership experience from the U.S. Air Force, retiring as a Chief Master Sergeant. His work centers on behavioral health, crisis response, and suicide prevention as well. And Adam is committed to reducing stigma and strengthening pathways to care for veterans. That was a very, very, very shortened bio because I didn't want everyone, he didn't want everyone to have to sit through a long bio. But with that, thank you so much for your time, Adam, and I'm going to hand it off to you.
Thank you so much, Chantel, and thanks for having me. It's great to be here with everyone. And I'll just, before we begin, I'll just say, feel free to comment in the chat, questions or comments that you have throughout the discussion. Raise your hand if you want to engage in the discussion or in the conversation here. Very want to make sure that everybody feels free to be a part of it, and I think that'll make our time here together more interesting. So, next slide, please. So I know this group brings a lot of experience from different systems and communities. So what I like to do is just walk through what we're seeing from our veterans on the ground, where some of the gaps tend to show up, and how we've been trying to address those peer and community based approaches. Next slide, please. So I'll share a little bit more about myself. I came to SAFE uh, a couple of years after, well, no, maybe a year after retiring from the Air Force. I did resilience work. I was in the chaplain corps, but I found myself unable to apply the things that I taught, the things that I had trained our airmen on, our social sailors, airmen, and Marine on, and found myself dealing with my own mental health challenges and mental health journey. I was doom scrolling on Facebook one day and saw this military wellness workshop and said, why not? And so I attended the workshop. And in the middle of the workshop, in the midst of the workshop, there were just several aha moments. I felt like I could apply it right now for myself and get myself out of this rut. And that's what I did. I appreciated the workshop so much that I began facilitating the workshop with SAFE. I began doing some contract with work with them, and then they hired me on full time. And so that's how I came to SAFE. And so I often tell people, kind of like that Rogaine commercial. Not only am I the president, I'm a user. Not only do I direct the program, I also have benefited from it personally. And so this program has a warm space in my heart. And so I hope you can kind of hear and see some of that passion come through as we chat today. Um, at Safe Veterans, within Safe Projects at Safe Veterans, we really try to focus on wellness, and recovery and resilience for service members, veterans, and their families. And you may hear me use the term SMVF or simply veterans, and I'm talking about the collective military connected community. The way we think about our role is pretty specific. We're not trying to replace clinical care or compete with systems. We're focused more on what happens before, between, and after those touch points where engagement can be a little less consistent. That's really the space where we try to operate in. Next slide. This quote here that you see tends to resonate across audiences, even at the highest levels of leadership with access to resources and support. There still can be moments where things don't connect in time. And if you recognize the name Admiral Sandy Winfield, is because he was previously, he retired as the vice chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And so here's the number two in uniform who's saying, as an admiral, he helped run the most powerful military on earth, but could not save his son. This is not about a lack of effort. It's about how complex these challenges are and how easy it is for gaps to exist in the system. This is really what drives this work. Next slide, please. Our mission, our mission is to contribute solutions towards overcoming mental health challenges, substance use, and in the broader addiction epidemic. You can see from our four initiatives there and the six focus areas beneath them that we approach our mission in a pretty practical way. And in Safe Veterans, we sit within this ecosystems, and our lens is always, what does this look like for the SMVF community? How do we connect prevention, treatment, recovery, all of those things in a way that honors the military and veteran experience, rather than treating each individual piece in isolation? And so we aim to build systems, tools, and experiences that are effective and that people will actually engage with, and not just something that looks good on paper, if you will. Next slide, please. So when we talk about veteran wellness, we're not just talking about one issue in isolation, and you can see the numbers on the screen. It's really about a combination of things that tend to show up during and after transition, the stressors, the identity shifts, the connection, access to support. Those pieces don't always show up at the same time or in the same way for everyone. And so you have these challenges that some of our veterans en- engage or come up against. Next slide, please. So you can see here where we've taken our wellness program through several states, and in the greenish bluish color, those are states we've already been in, and the light purple color, those are states we're going to be in this year. These include colleges and universities, community centers, VSOs. We're going into jails. We're working with law enforcement and first responders. We're bringing this program to those who need it. With this program, we're growing our capacity by training facilitators to provide the workshop. We're on target to have 12 additional facilitators this year, so that folks in key states can be reached, and we can expand our reach exponentially. We're also building capacity by training ambassadors, which are similar to our peer supporters who can walk with veterans on their journey one to one, strengthen their skills, and help break those barriers to support and guide them to the resources that they need. This year, we're on track to bring, as I said, our support to additional 5 states, and we're excited about that. We're excited about the foundation we've begun to lay for next year as well, where we'll hopefully grow a lot more. Next slide, please. So what are we talking about? What we consistently see is that that military service builds a lot of strengths. Um, Discipline, resilience, the ability to perform under pressure. Uh, but when someone transitions out of that environment, some of the structure and identity that supported those strengths can shift pretty quickly. At the same time, the challenges tend to overlap. It's rarely just one thing. It might be mental health, sleep issues, chronic pain, employment, sometimes it's justice involvement. These things tend to layer on top of each other. And then, even when someone reaches a point where they're open to support, there still can be hesitation, right? Sometimes it's stigma, sometimes it's not knowing where to start, sometimes it's not feeling like the available options are a good fit. I see Jody said, glad to see Safe Veterans is coming to Arizona. Yes, Jody, that's one of the initiatives that we have this year. We're taking our program to returning citizens actually before they come home, and and we're going to give them these skill sets so that when they return home, they can use all of the other skills, the employment skills, the interview skills, and all of those other skills. They'll be in a better place to access those skill sets and be in a better position to stay home. Yeah. And so thanks so much for that comment, Jody. Um, So what this often looks like in practice is that someone can be doing fine on the surface, showing up to work, taking care of responsibility. Underneath that, things are starting to stack up, right? It's not always obvious when that shift happens. One of the things that I've seen, and I'm sure many of you have as well, is that people don't usually reach out at the beginning of a challenge, right? They tend to wait until things have compounded a bit. So by the time they're open to support, it's not just one issue, it's multiple things interacting at once. And that's where it can feel overwhelming. And it's not just overwhelming for the individual, but also overwhelming for the systems trying to support them. Next slide, please. So, what we've tried to build with the military wellness workshop is something that meets people in that space, right? That space where that gap kind of happens. It's a peer-led, structured workshop that gives participants practical tools they can use right away. It's just as important as the tools, um, just as important as the tools is the environment, right? This workshop, when we facilitate it, it creates a space where people can have real conversations about what's going on without feeling like they have to present in a certain way or have everything figured out. And that tends to be where that shift starts to happen. You can see almost the light bulb go on or come on, kind of like when I had my experience and there was just several aha moments in my first time experiencing the workshop. I'll give you another quick example of what this can look like. We had a group of veterans go through this workshop together in a setting where they were already being pushed physically and mentally. It wasn't a classroom setting like we normally provide the workshop, but a real world environment where stressors and discomfort were present, right? And what stood out wasn't just that they had learned the material, it was how quickly barriers came down. People who came in guarded, not expecting to open up, having real conversations. They started having real conversations, excuse me, because because they wanted to. It wasn't because they were told to, but because the environment and the shared experience made it feel safe to do so. And what came out of that was something that we hear a lot. That sense of, I didn't realize other people were carrying the same things I was. How many of you have heard that before? That's usually the moment where, for many of our veterans, things begin to change. And so, next slide, please. And so, this is the overarching work that we do with this workshop. That is to move participants from coping to thriving. We have these buzzwords in the industry, if you will, resilience. Everybody wants resilience with resiliency. Is it enough to be resilient? Can we grow and thrive from the experiences that we have? What that really means is helping people move from just getting through the day to starting to take a more active role in how they are navigating things. We're not telling people in this workshop what their path should look like. We're giving them a framework and helping them navigate that framework to better understand what's going on for them, connect with others, and help start identifying what comes next. Next slide, please. So this is the journey. The workshop follows a progression. It starts at base camp and they find themselves at the Tower of Contribution. It starts at base camp where they learn or are actually are reminded of their strengths and their self-leadership attributes. They're reminded that at different points of their life, they've gone through transitions and they'll continue to go through transitions and they'll continue to learn and grow from those transitions. Then you can see the erupting Volcano at the Range of Emotions, where they get practical tools needed for the journey. Um, we learn that many of those tools are already within us, but we also get a skill set that we can apply when things seem to be more than what we can handle. And then we move along to the stress boulder fields and the resilience plateau, where we learn how to navigate those stressors. We learn how to identify our coping mechanisms, evaluate our coping mechanisms, and really raise that set point so that we're not just coping and being resilient, we're also moving that needle forward and thriving in life. Then we go forward into the lake of opportunity, where you can see there's water that flows throughout. This is representative of their benefits, and and the benefits flow throughout this whole journey. So benefits are available to them at any point. And we stress that the veterans have earned these benefits, and we break down the barriers and those stigmas to accessing those benefits because those things are real. And then we go to the foothills of goals where we set and achieve goals. At the end of this module, they walk away with step one of a goal that they've set that they can take and that they'll commit to themselves to doing. And it's an actionable goal, it's a timely goal, all those SMART goals. We know how to make those SMART goals, right? And so then they finally end up at the Tower of Contributions where they give back to the community that they're a part of. And so it's really a full circle kind of a day, a workshop where we come in and we take them along this journey and help them look at themselves, see who they are, and each piece builds on the last. So that by the end of the workshop, participants aren't just reflecting on on something that they've learned. They're actually starting to take action. They have something that they can apply, and they're able to apply it in real time. They're able to recognize patterns, naming things they haven't named before, starting to connect those insights to actions. And so by the time they go from the beginning modules to the latter modules, they're not thinking about change only. They've started to change already. And again, I can testify to my experience, and that resonates to me. Kim says sim model, and so uh, I'm guessing that this is kind of like a question: is this a simulated model that they go through? So this is an interactive workshop. It's facilitated by a peer. And so a military connected individual, either a service member, a veteran, a family member, or a caregiver, facilitates this and walks through the participants each module. And they have a workbook that they're able to navigate exercises with. There are slides. So it's interactive. It's not virtual yet. We're in the process. Um, Got you. That's what you're saying. Sequential intercept model. The PowerPoint reminds me of it. Okay, thank you so much, Kim. And so that's you're spot on. And so yeah, that we the workshop and I'll hit this a little bit later, but it's evidence-based workshop, and so a lot of what we do will resonate with many of the informed discussions that we've already had. And so, next slide, please. Thank you for your comment, Kim. And so, what we've seen from our approach is consistent movement across a few key areas, right? Participants report being more confident in managing emotional triggers, more aware of early warning signs, and more comfortable navigating support systems. We also see increased confidence about preventing substance use challenges, which is important because that's often where things escalate if it isn't in place, if that support isn't in place. Across the board, participants report growth in at least one area by the end of the workshop. And what's important about these numbers is not just the increase. We could pat ourselves on the back all day long, but it's really what they represent. These aren't small shifts. Going from not knowing where to go to for help, to knowing exactly who to contact, that's a major barrier being removed. And from a systems perspectives, that's where we're starting to see better engagement. Because when people understand what is available and feel more confident in accessing it, then they're more actually likely to take the next step, right? Next slide. At the end of the workshop, what people walk away with tends to fall into three areas, really. They have practical skills they can use, they have more confidence, in how they navigate things. They've built connection with others who understand their experience. And that combination is what helps things move forward for our veterans because it's not just information, it's something they can actually carry with them. And they have this workbook in hand that they can also carry with them. They can see the notes that they made and refer back to it. So it's a really powerful tool that our folks get to add to their toolkit. Next slide, please. And so, why does this matter, right? Peer-led support is a big part of why this works. It reduces some of the barriers that can exist in more formal settings. And people tend to open up more, right? There's a level of shared understanding. You don't have to start from ground zero and explain what it's like to put on a uniform. It creates a space for earlier conversations, and those conversations can happen now before things reach a point of crisis, which is so important. It also helps people get connected to services earlier and stay engaged once they do. And so, what we've been talking about here is really the gap between what veterans experience and how they engage with support. It's normally not a shortage of strength or willingness, but a transition, overlapping challenges, and hesitation that can make it harder to take that first step. What we've tried to do with the Military Wellness Workshop is create a space that feels accessible, practical, and grounded in shared experiences, where people can start to recognize what's going on, building connections, and take action before things escalate. And what we're seeing is that when you combine practical tools with peer connection, people are more likely to engage and move forward. And this is where we really see an important dynamic. There's often a perception, whether it's accurate or not, that veterans don't trust certain systems. At the same time, many of those resources that they need are in those systems that they don't trust. So the challenge isn't necessarily the absence of resources, right? We all know have huge list of resources in our Rolodexes, right? It's the connection to those resources, right? Connecting the veteran to those resources. Peer-led environments help bridge that gap. They create a space where people can process that hesitation, build that trust, then make more informed decisions about engaging with those systems. And so I'm really interested in hearing how that lines up with what you're seeing. And so I'll pass it on back to Chantel for the discussion questions.
All right, thank you. So I'm gonna let Mr. Swift have a short break from talking to everybody. He put together some questions for the group. So for those of you who are familiar, if you want to put answers in the chat, and then also feel free to raise your hand if you want to talk and explain your question a little bit more, or ask your question out loud. So the first question that he has for all of you is to think about is what barriers most often keep veterans from engaging with support before things escalate. So what would you say you've seen? And feel free to put it again in the chat or raise your hand. All right. And also, as I read things off, Mr. Swift, if you want to chime in or add anything, feel free to do so. Um, Thank you all so much. I'm saying identifying as a veteran or having Oh, they're going so fast. Or having served in the military, negative preconceived notions, feeling understood and not judged, lack of awareness, lack of veteran-centric services, lack of peer-led environment, pride. Definitely, I can see that. They feeling like they can handle it. Don't want to ask for help, environment, uh, bad customer service. I feel like I'm seeing some similarities in some of them. Um, Not understanding they earn their benefits with the VA. Absolutely. Absolutely.
These are definitely when we facilitate this workshop, location services as well, yes, location as well. These are definitely the barriers that come up, right? And we find this is exactly it doesn't matter what group we're with. We've done this. I've done this workshop probably 20 some odd times since I've been with the organization, and these are exactly what comes up, right? Um, and the frustration of folks not understanding what it means to have served, right? Somebody who's that civilian who just doesn't understand. And there are civilians who do understand, definitely. They've been caregivers or they've taken the time to learn and understand, but then there's those who just don't get it. um, Preconceived notions. One of those most powerful slides that I've seen at one of these types of discussions um, said that not every military member has PTSD. Not every member who has PTSD has gotten it from war or from combat. And it went on to kind of break down some of those preconceived notions that people have about military members that just don't necessarily line up or add up. And there's a long list of those types of preconceived notions, right? Feeling judged and not understood. I'm sorry, feeling understood and not judged. Yeah, definitely. That goes a long way into engaging with support before things escalate. Lack of awareness, lack of veteran-centric services, peer-led environment. Um, yeah, definitely that as well goes into it. Some folks just don't know what's out there, right? They haven't taken the time or just don't have the capability to get access to those services. Pride, that's something if you didn't have it before you joined the military, it's kind of one of those things that they kind of issue to many of us, in that we get the sense that we're going to get the mission done regardless. And so that's definitely something that can come from it. Um, don't like asking for help. I can do it myself. That's a similar to pride. Yeah, definitely. Bad customer service. There are organizations, and this is one of those things um, that kind of feeds itself, right? And so if I have a bad experience, I'm going to tell my battle buddy about my bad experience, and now they have a bad taste in their mouth, even though it wasn't their experience, about the service provider that offered help to me. And so, yeah, definitely, that's a big part of it. Kim said, not understanding they earned their benefits with the VA. I'll tell a quick story here. Um, we had a member a gentleman or a unit that forward deployed. They were on a convoy, as we do, and they came under attack. Um, got hit by IED, and one of the members lost their leg. Of course, they were sent to Germany and sent home for care. The rest of the unit continued on with the mission. Um, about a year later, there was an organization that brought them all back together to kind of see, hey, how are you guys doing? What can we do to better serve you, better help you, better support you? The gentleman whose leg who lost his leg and on the convoy said he didn't feel like he deserved benefits. He didn't earn benefits because he didn't finish the mission. And everybody's like, you're exactly who these benefits are for. And so it's that kind of mentality that sometimes it comes with kind of what we do. We take care of the person to our left and to our right, and being able to break down some of these barriers. These are real, true barriers that veterans experience. Being able to break down these barriers is a part of the work that happens. A lot of times, organizations focus on those tangible things. Can I get you a job? Can I get you housing? Can I get you this? Those are essential and very important. But some of those intangible things are just as important because if you can't, if here you can't access between your temples, if you can't access um, that you deserve these things, that these things are for you, then you can't access the services that you need, and it's just a bad downhill from there. Rural areas is another big one, another big one, and being able to access the care in those rural areas and get the support there. I see lack of knowledge about services, definitely. It's important to educate and have those resources available as we navigate these spaces, and that's what we do, right? We share these resources. Um, it would be It would be the mentors who help with those supports and help gain the tools needed. Listening to our participants is an attitude of I don't have it bad like X does. Do you want to say more about that, Kim? I don't know if you want to come off mute. And um, Jay said very relatable, as I used to say the same thing myself before I began using the services and resources. So it's definitely. Okay, I got you. I'm tracking. I'm tracking. Yeah, definitely. Those who think there are those who are worse off. And again, it comes down to I'm taking care of the person to my left and my right, and not to the person and not taking care of the person in the mirror. I don't want to take benefits away from someone else. In that module that I talked about, our lake of opportunity, where we break down that stigma of accessing those benefits. One of the things we put up is the VA budget for the year, 400 billion with a B dollars, and so it's there. The resources are there for our veterans, and so that it's just accessible. I think I'm kind of rambling now, so we can go to the next question. I think we-
That's fine. And I also wanted to mention, because I've heard that a lot as well, especially even working with like US territories and whatnot. And it was actually shared that the more you report that you have these issues, the more likelihood that they will then have documentation that there's more need, which can lead to more resources and more funding and things like that. So by coming forward with your issues, you can actually be helping them because then you're making it known that there are more people who have these needs. So that was something shared with me that kind of helped change the perspective a bit.
Mm.
Um, but I do want to get to our second question that Mr. Swift came up for you all. So following that discussion we just had, what practical tools or peer supports have helped veterans feel safer asking for help? Or maybe have even helped you if you're a veteran as well? Hmm. Kim, do you want to like share a little bit more about that? Like, are you able to go off mute? Hmm. So, alright. So I was trying to follow along with what Kim, what you're talking about. So basically you're saying that someone came forward with some hurdles and then that led to a divorce, where he wasn't able to have the kids in the home because of the specific, I'm guessing like mental health issues that he was dealing with. Okay, thank you. Um, and then we
That's a
had, oh,
No, I was just going to say that's a common fear for, and especially for our service members, our active service members, the consequences of self-disclosure, self-reporting, the perceived consequences are very real. Having worked excuse me, in the resilience space, and having worked with the flight docs and directors of psychological health and so forth. Um, those perceptions don't always align with the reality, but that's a real fear that people have. And again, it's a barrier to accessing help. It's a real barrier. And so the question kind of becomes, how do we navigate that with that service member, with that veteran? How do we get them to the help that they need, even though there's this huge barrier that's there, that something bad is going to happen if I share. 988, press one. Option one, we do these workshops, and when I start to say 988, many of the people know that option one is the one for veterans. This is a great resource. Um, Jody said resource navigation, mental health, housing, and employment services, all delivered by veterans or veteran spouses. That peer connection to somebody who's walked the walk, that's so important to breaking down those barriers as well. Yeah, that's really great. Keandra says, hope I'm saying it right, says we have peer support specialists who are also veterans that assist our veterans, ongoing training for mental health staff that work with veterans. You got to know the culture. I'm hearing this theme, right? You need to know the culture. Kim says we have two peer support specialists in our court. Plus, we have one in training, and our graduates become a part of that support to help the participants feel safe, not only in the court, but that's amazing. Once they graduate, that's amazing. It's nothing like being able to benefit from those resources and then give back. That's huge. Connection. Many people say that connection is the antidote to fill in the blanks, suicidalities, uh, mental health challenges, substance use challenges, a lot of those things. And so that connection is huge. Um, Charity says building peer relationships with other participants in our treatment court, as well as mentors we have in our court, like others with specialty courts say. So it sounds like there's a big theme going on with those peer relationships and having that in the courts. That's huge, a huge thing for veterans, and having it at the point, at this special significant or specific point to where things could break down. And that's kind of what we're talking about, bridging that gap and that, you know, filling that gap where those misconnections might be. So that's huge. I'm glad to hear that there's so many things going on in your communities that are there that are helping support our veterans as they navigate these spaces. So that's huge. Jay says he's hoping to have that more in their state. What state are you in, Jay? Oregon. Okay. Invite me out. Invite me out, Jay.
thank
um,
you so much, Mr. Swift. I think, unless you want to add anything else on this section, I think time-wise, we're good to move forward.
okay, great. All right. Um, and so recovery is not linear. Let me find my our place. One of the things we've leaned into pretty quickly in this work is that recovery doesn't happen in a straight line. Even when someone reaches a point where they're ready to ask for help, and that doesn't mean that everything gets easier from there. In a lot of cases, it just shifts the challenge. So we know recovery is not linear. Before we even can get folks the recovery that they need, I want to kind of go back to one of the resources. I want to highlight one of the resources that we at SAFE have. It's called our SAFE Locator. And SAFE partnered with SAMHSA to source its resource database. So we take the service providers in its resource database, and from there, we developed a website where individuals and resource providers alike can find support in their backyard. It pulls those that information from SAMHSA, and returns resources that the individual and the caregivers can find, like I said, right in their zip code. I'm, a, I'm putting it, I think, well, I wanted to put it in the chat, but I'll get that to you before we get out of this chat. And so um, what Safe Locator does, it just asks you a set of questions. It asks you the type of help you're looking for. Are you looking for a treatment facility? Are you looking for family support? Are you looking for recovery housing? If you're looking for recovery housing, it taps into the National Resource Directory and gives you locations that are in your area. If you're looking for treatment center or family support, it'll ask you a few more questions, right? The type of service you're looking for detox, outpatient, medication assisted treatment services, telehealth. Are you looking for non-clinical support? Then it asks you if you want solely substance use services or do you want mental health support along with that substance use services. It asks you if you're a part of a uniquely service community, LGBT plus, service member, veteran, or family member, justice involved, pregnant, postpartum, etc. Ask you what substance you need resources for or treatment for. Um, and so then it returns to you matches in your location. And so that give you uh, within whatever radius you say, if you say a 10-mile radius, it'll show you the list of all of those resources that are in your backyard. And so what this does is really simplifies what can otherwise feel like a very complex and process. And instead of someone having to navigate multiple systems, multiple websites, figure out where they fit in, this helps narrow that down a lot more quickly. And it just makes that process easier, and it helps because someone is just a little bit more likely to take that step. And so, even when someone reaches a point where they're ready to ask for help, it doesn't mean that everything gets easier from there. A lot of times, the challenge kind of shifts. It becomes how do they stay connected? It becomes how do they keep momentum? It becomes how do they navigate everything that comes next? And what we see is that barriers don't disappear once someone kind of raises their hand. They just look different. It might be logistics, transportation, scheduling, availability. It might be internal. I have hesitation or uncertainty or just not sure where I fit in. Sometimes it's just feeling disconnected from the system they're struggling to try to engage with. And so the question for us has been, how do we stay connected to people in that space? Is not just at the moment that they need help, but also the time that follows. And one thing that we've seen consistently is that even when someone finds the right resource, staying engaged is a separate challenge because life doesn't pause just when someone gets help, right? Work, family, stressors, all of these things are still there. The cycle is still, the churn is still going. And so having something that helps maintain that connection during that process becomes just as important as the initial referral. Next slide, please. One of the things that we have that we like to call one of our low barrier supports is our Veterans All Recovery Call. And this is a weekly virtual space that is intentionally, like I said, low barrier. There's no requirement to be at a certain stage of recovery. There's no expectation that someone shows up with a plan or even knows what they want to say when they come to the group. There's no requirement for them to say anything. It's open to veterans, service members, family members, which matters because this recovery journey doesn't happen in isolation, right? You need those people around you, and those people are a part, just as an important part of your journey. And so, what happens in these calls is pretty simple. There's usually a topic to get things started, to get things going, and then it becomes a conversation, right? People share what's going on in their life. People talk about what they're working through, what's been helpful. There's some stories that are shared, storytelling. Anytime you get veterans in a group, there will be war stories that are going to be shared. But there's also resource sharing and a lot of mutual support. One of the things that I appreciate most about this group is that somebody will share something that they're going through, and then another individual will share how they got through that, and it's really helpful in real time for them. And over time, that creates a consistency, a place where people can come back to without having to start over each time. And that consistency, excuse me, turns out to be really important. Because engagement is not just about getting someone into a service, it's about helping them stay connected over time. A lot of these systems are designed really to respond at specific points, intake, treatment, discharge. But in between these points, there can be gaps, and those gaps are often where people fall off. So having something that sits alongside those systems, something people can access regularly without friction, helps maintain that connection. It gives people a place to process what's going on in real time and not just when things reach that breaking point, which is so important. What we've noticed over time is that people don't always come to these calls ready to share. Sometimes they come just to listen, and that's a part of the process for them. But as they come back week after week, that comfort builds and eventually they start to engage. And that consistency is what creates trust, and trust is what keeps people connected. Next slide, please. And that really leads into how we think about collaboration because none of this works on its own. We are very, very intentional about how we position this work. We're not trying to replace clinical care. We're not trying to build something separate from what already exists. My CEO, Jeff Horwitz, often says we don't do work in a silo. We don't compete with others. We find out what we do well, we do that really well, and we support other folks who are in the same space of taking care of folks. We're trying to strengthen these resources that are available to our veterans. And so when we look at the broader system, right, we have our VA or VHA, the clinical providers, we have our community providers, and they're delivering treatment. Um, the state agencies are building infrastructure and that access to those treatments. Community organizations are creating local connection and trust. And this is where our core belief really comes into place, right? Veterans aren't the issue. Programs aren't the issue. The issue is that gap that we've been talking about between them. We have strong programs and strong systems, but when those systems don't feel connected from the individual's perspective, that's where we lose those people. So the focus becomes how do we close that gap? And our role is really to help connect those pieces, especially on the front end and in between those services, to help people engage earlier and make it more likely that they'll stay engaged once they do. Next slide, please. And so we've seen this take shape in a few different ways. Through partnership with state agencies, we're able to connect into existing networks that already have reach and trust. Through community organizations, we're able to meet people where they are in spaces that feel familiar and accessible in justice or reentry settings. We're able to engage individuals who might not otherwise connect to traditional systems at all. Each of these partnerships looks a little different, but the goal is the same. Not handing someone off and hoping for the best, but staying connected across that process. And that's what makes these partnerships effective, is not just access, it's really alignment. It's making sure that when someone moves from one part of the system to another, it feels like a continuation, or we call it our continuum of care, right? Not just a reset. It's that subtle difference, but it has a big impact on whether someone stays engaged. And I want to send a shout out to DBS real quick because they've provided us with a grant to do this work for the past 3 years. And so the Virginia DBS has. OWLS is the brains behind this workshop that we do and a lot of what we do. And so they offer OWLS is organizational wellness learning systems. And so they've helped us formulate this workshop for our veterans. We work with organizations like Veterans Life Center in North Carolina, again, that local trusted access. And so we're working with all of these individuals, and I believe that that's the best way to do it in concert. Again, working in concert with those organizations that touch folks wherever they are in their journey. Next slide, please. All right, so Um, as you think about your own systems, your own communities, the question we often come back to is pretty simple. Where are the gaps, right? Where are the gaps? Where are people not engaging early enough? Where are they dropping off? Where are they unsure what to do next? And then from there, what would it look like to introduce something that helps close those gaps? That's usually where these partnerships begin. What we've been focusing on here in this second half is what happens after that initial point of engagement. Because getting someone connected is one step, but staying connected over time is where things can break down. We know, again, we'll say it again, recovery is not linear, and the gaps between services are real. So the question becomes how we create consistency, connection, support that people can access without that friction, whether that's going through ongoing peer spaces like the All Recovery Call or working through stronger collaboration across systems. The goal is the same. All people have, um, the goal is the same to help people stay engaged and experience the systems as they connected, as they are connected and not fragmented. And so I'd be interested in hearing where you are seeing these gaps and then what's been working in your spaces. And I think the next slide is our discussion.
You're correct. So we have some more questions that Mr. Swift has come up for all of you. So the first one is, what barriers do veterans in your communities still face after they're ready to seek help? And again, you can put it in the chat. You can also raise your hand. And for anyone that maybe doesn't really know how to raise their hand, because I know it's always changing, there is a heart on the bottom toolbar that says react. If you click it, there's another bar that pops up that says raise your hand. Um, I see a lot coming in the chat already. Um, so how can an organization establish a partnership with the VA? And I think this might be some good questions for you. These are questions.
Okay, let's do it.
So
Let's do it.
we'll
So
start
how
with
can, go ahead. How can an organization establish a partnership with a VA in our county? This is a population of focus that is in need of more support with a partnership with VA services. So what we've done is we provided our program to the public, and we had a proven program, and then we put that grant before the Department of Veteran Services, and they were able to support us. Walmart, Wounded Warrior they were behind us as far as funding this workshop creation. And so when you have the support that is there, many times the VA will then look at it. VA doesn't do partnerships per se, but they will I don't want to use too strong a word, but they will collaborate with you, allow you to use their facilities sometimes, allow you to advertise in their facilities and different things like that. And so you may just need to be a little creative about how that quote unquote partnership looks like and what that might be. I don't know. Does that help, or is there more question that you have? And then are there other folks who have experience with partnerships or collaborating with the VA?
I'm definitely seeing just some ways people are sharing some barriers here.
Hmm.
Being in rural areas, I think that's a huge one. I'm hearing that one all the time, the rural areas and the distance, um, transportation, housing, knowledge of community resources, transportation, miscommunication. Danny, I see your hand too. I'll read through these and then I'll come to you. Transportation, miscommunication, so being passed around between providers. I've definitely heard about that one as well. Um, Access to their benefits, other resources as well. And Adam, feel free if you want to add anything. I'm just reading these
Hmm.
off.
Yeah, thanks.
Um, we have rural again, engagement with new people again, navigating virtual appointments for older or technology limited individuals, hierarchy of needs not being met, other undisclosed barriers, such as substance use disorders. And then this person does work with VA and with a veteran medical center and I don't know what HCHV is that if anyone wants to share, and then in their area and they have a strong area of contact. Thank you. Healthcare for homeless veterans. Um,
Mm.
thank you. And then the last one here I see is Renee shares that we are a certified community behavioral health center that is required to serve veterans. They do, but in low numbers, and are hoping to build connections to better serve the population, especially in the rural areas. Did you want to add anything to any of these before we move to Danny?
Yeah, just real quick, I will say, like, a lot of times, well, I won't say a lot of times, part of the issue sometimes is that veterans are not reported, right? You don't know that there are veterans there, right? So it's almost a self-report kind of a thing. And especially a lot of times when you're in the rural communities, some folks go to these communities to get away, right, and to not be found, and so that's a part of the struggle. But then how do we make that happen? And so I see that a lot. I see that a lot. Exactly what you're talking about there. And then I echo everything everybody else has said as well. I won't go to each one like I did before, but I echo all of that. So yeah, we can go to Danny.
Yeah, I work for a Veterans Suicide Prevention Mental Health Grant, SSG Fox here in Pikeville, and it was the question about the getting connected with the VA entities. Uh, we have a lot of success. Like there's several coalitions in our area. We get involved with those. The stand downs is a good. They have a lot of different companies come out and set up tables and stuff, and just networking at those events and stuff like that. Those are a good place to come up with good resources and get good connections with the VA and such.
I'm so glad you said that, Danny. That's spot on. One of the ones we have, I'm in Richmond, Virginia, and so we have I always get the name of it kind of mixed up, but it's called the Veteran Community Network of Central Virginia, right? And there's these types of these types of organizations all over Virginia by region, and all of these nonprofits and organizations that have whatever service they offer are part of that organization. They have a resource directory, right? And so this is another way we can access and offer services to the veterans in the community. I also say, like, this group of 28 folks on this call can be resources to each other, right? And so that's an amazing, a powerful resource, right? And so I see DVA conferences up there. That's a yeah, another opportunity for us as well. Yeah. Veteran stand downs. Yep. That's in the park. And again, the as Kim says, the issue isn't the programs. The programs are there. The issue isn't the vets. The vets are there. It's like you're making that connection. And so one of the things that I thought that was pretty genius, I went to a conference and one of the presenters told a story about how they were having struggles reaching the population, right? Reaching the veterans. They would put in X amount of dollars and two veterans would show up. X amount of dollars and five veterans will show up. And it wasn't, not that there's a return on investment that you're looking for. Like if one person's impacted, then that's enough. And at the same time, you know that there's so much more need out there, right? So what they ended up doing was connecting with the different resources in the area. This happened to be a university this was the veterans office on the university on the campus, right? So they got together with other universities in their region. They got together with VSOs in their region. They got together with state and local government organizations, nonprofits in their region, and combined their resources and combined their programming. And what they found was that where they were only able to draw two or three people, everybody else was having the same issue. But when they combine their efforts, 10 organizations that are drawing two or three people, that's 20 or 30 people, right? And all of a sudden you have a lot more people who are able to benefit from your organizations. And then those 20, 30 people are telling their friends, and it just grows from there, right? And so great opportunity to develop some synergy there. So.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. And I will ask your last question to the group. What partnership or support pathways, thinking about from your where you are, can you strengthen in the next 60 days? I think maybe even you can think about some of the stuff that people have been mentioning in the chat, if you have that, or you maybe to see if you have So we have Brandy shared partnerships with higher learning as well as faith-based communities.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Stronger ties with state VSOs. By VSOs, are you talking about service officers or service organizations or both? Right, absolutely.
I just put in the chat the national, I think National Association of County Veteran Service Officers or Organization Officers. They're having their conference in Rio, the end of May, early June. I'll be going to that, as an effort to have stronger ties with the VSOs. I don't know if you know of a state VSO conference, but I'd go to that as well. It's just ways that we are able to put ourselves in front of these organizations and gain some of that visibility when you can, and then share the story, right? So I'm happy to share whatever I learned from that um, with you all. Revamping mentorship program to better assist both mentors and mentees. That's awesome. Awesome.
Can I ask a question? Just kind of, I mean, if curiosity. So, like, what would you be, I guess, doing to help mentors and mentees? Like, I guess, what changes or needs have you identified that you're working on? Hmm. Thank you. Okay, yeah. So training, but obviously training is always important. I think that's something that you always have to keep doing it. Things are always changing. Um, and Kim mentions reaching out to All Rise Scott Chirochi. Don't think I'm familiar. Are you familiar, Mr. Slip?
I'm not, but I'm Googling it now. Justice for vets. Okay. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you all for sharing this.
Mhm.
And I'm hoping also people are able to kind of see what some people are sharing and get some ideas as well for themselves. I
Yeah.
um, I feel like at this point, if we don't really have any more, we can move on.
Mhm.
We're kind of getting toward the closing. Oh, I would, yeah, that would be neat to see. All right, we can move to the next slide.
Okay, yeah, those are just the organizations within Safe Project and how to contact us, our directors via email. Again, we're on campuses, communities. We have a prevention director, recovery director. I am the veterans director and workplaces director. So these are the emails that you can contact these individuals with.
All right, next
Next
slide.
slide. Mhm.
All right, so I'll kind of go through these and let you get a little bit of a break, but um, I just want to thank you so much again for your time here. Definitely appreciate your engagement with how you went through the meeting. I feel like I got a lot out of it, and from seeing the conversation, I would say it was engaging for everyone else here as well. And hopefully, everyone has been able to take something away. As always, we will be sending out a copy of the slides and a recording to everyone here who has attended. And then also, I see that Mr. Swift put his email in the chat. So if you want to invite him to Oregon or ask him any questions, that's his information. So we do have an optional homework for you. No one's going to check if you actually do it, but if you're interested, um, we the thing is to map your current veteran recovery ecosystem. So kind of looking at what you have in your area and thinking about the VA, VHA partners, state veteran agencies, peer support organizations, community nonprofits, justice reentry partners, and employers, workplaces, and any other organizations you see fit. And I definitely would say that we have a lot of these coming up in our conversations today. So it looks like a lot of you have already been even thinking about those factors in your system. Next slide, please. So just sharing that we do have a webinar going out for anyone who's a data person. It's a RAND webinar series on advancing data policy prevention for service members, veterans, and their families. Each session is basically two views on research. So two different articles of research that came out from RAND that are related to the SMVF community. And you'll be able to hear from those who put that research together about it. And they'll talk a bit about the data behind it and some ideas that they have based off of the data and their findings. So if you're a data person, uh, I think it would be very interesting for you. Next slide, please. For anyone that is not registered, if you got this, you probably are already signed up for our topics in the news, but if not, that's one way to sign up for different events that we host on our end. If you want to get emails from us on what we are doing, such as this learning community, webinars, and other things like that. We also have our monthly topics in the news that in general has a lot of information and things in the SMVF community. Next slide, please. So the last session for this series is going to be May 21, and it's on state and community approaches to supporting veteran and military recovery. We actually will be having a second presenter on that meeting. It's going to be I don't have the name right offhand, but there was a second presenter that was just added, so you're going to actually be able to hear from two different people from that on that topic. Next slide, please. So again, I just want to say thank you to everybody for your time, and thank you again, Mr. Swift, for your time. I don't know if you want to give any closing remarks. I'm putting you on the spot.
I just appreciate everybody participating in the discussion. And this work is definitely a calling for many of us, and it's something that's very needed. And so appreciate your time and your attention and being a part of the discussion. Thanks. And thanks for the opportunity, really. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Bye.